Wow, this is a lively group. This sounds like fun. Let me catch my breath here. It's been one of those 3-week periods where everything has been a bit crazy transmission-wise. If any of you noticed, there was never a title put out for this workshop. That's because they didn't tell me what it was supposed to be about until, like yesterday, they were starting to give me information. It's a security clearance workshop because of things that you'll understand by the end of this particular workshop. If there are new people in the audience, and this is your first workshop, I would say welcome. If you don't know who I am, I'm Ashana Dean, and that's as my husband. We're speaker 1 and 2. Mac is speaker 3. And we are here to teach the science of ascension, which gets more and more complicated the more we learn, actually. However, this is a mixed group from what I've been tipped off. A small number of new people with a larger number of people who have been around and know a lot of the information. So if you are new and you get a little bit lost, please don't don't just abandon ship and feel bad. There are people that can help you catch up on the information and point you in the direction of the things that you don't understand yet that might have got you lost. Because I'm going to try to, as usual, hit an average mean as far as the frequency in the room and bring the information through in a way that the majority can understand it to whatever level they're able. So I can't just aim for the newbies and take you through this is a Kathara grid, right? That's what the modules are for, that kind of thing. But we are in the middle of something that is very, very extraordinary in terms of the drama that has been unfolding progressively on this planet since the year 2000, and really since way before that. But the latest block of the drama has been from 2000, when the stellar activation cycle in this round started. We have gone through a lot, particularly people who have worked with us and been with us from the beginning when we first introduced the work that we are teaching, the Melchizedek Cloister work. We started out with ascension teachings, general ascension teachings, and they were actually the best you will find, because we don't just teach you about this fluff-headed thing called ascension and like they say 3 Hail Marys and praise Archangel Michael and you go, right, which a lot of ascension teachings do that, and they are misleading and they are false. We came back as a team. The Indigos came back as a team, as a planetary team. Indigos come in all shapes and sizes from all different countries, all different colors, all different creeds. But we came back as an incarnational force, even if we didn't remember who we were before when we were born here. We came back to bring back the true teachings once again. They are the freedom teachings. And these teachings, if things on this planet since the year 2000 had gone in a peaceful way, if there weren't, say, a resistance to Christic teachings, and I'm not saying Christian teachings, because the Christian teachings are just as distorted as any of the other religions on this planet at this point. All of them have a piece of the Christic teachings. If you think of the word mystic and you think of the word Christ put together, you get Christic. So if anybody asks what we are, we kind of say we're Christics, right, with a K, K-R-I-S-T-I-C. The Christic teachings are really the most beautiful teachings in terms of understanding a person's relationship to God Source, your immediate and living relationship to God Source, but also to your planet, to your galaxy, to your universe, to the cosmos, because it doesn't separate. These teachings do not separate science and spirituality. They show you where the two live together and where creation has always embodied both of them, consciousness and energy. The teachings, because of the drama on the planet, had to go progressively in a more sophisticated way that technically would lose a lot of people just coming in. We started pretty simple with 15-dimensional matrix and where your soul was and your avatar and your oversoul, all of those things. And then we very quickly had to go into Templar mechanics, which were understanding the stargates on the planet, which are the passageways out of here. If you want to ascend, you need to be able to use stargates. If you want to be able to use stargates, your DNA has to be capable of doing certain things that organically it would naturally be able to do. We have had to progressively, because this drama has progressed in a not particularly pleasant way on this planet, that we have had to reveal progressively more of what you would refer to collectively as the anti-Christic force. And the anti-Christic force is a very, very old force. It is not as old as the first creation force of the Christic teachings. However, it has been a problem for a very long time with a very long history attached to it. It is not one face of an Antichrist that is a person, just like there's not just one face of the true Christ or the true Christ. There are many faces, just like Jeshua once upon a time was one of those faces. But there are many faces that have represented collectively the truth of the Christ. What we are in the middle of right now, and why we were having to progressively give more and more sophisticated information pertaining to not only your own personal relationship with God and how to achieve your own ascension, it was essential to bring in the understanding of understanding what ascension really is in terms of the technicals of stargates and planets, so we could understand what is happening on this planet. Because what is happening on this planet is not natural and it is not organic. This planet is going into fall. We've talked about this before. We've explained what fall is in relation to natural Christic mechanics. We've explained a bit about what a natural Christic planet would do and what its where its north would be and a few things like that, and how it would have a relationship to its own solar plane and how this planet does not have that. We've explained, and not willingly, I have not wanted to be the person having to be the face on revealing the information about the beast black hole technology that was released in Atlantis here. I have not enjoyed this process. It has been extremely painful, actually, because if I can't teach something that feels good, I don't want to teach anything. However, if we did not understand the information that we brought through about what took place in Atlantis pertaining to the creation of using natural Christic energies and twisting them in a way that creates anti-Christic technologies, that create black hole technologies that cause the fall of planetary systems or galaxies. We have had to release this information and show how it stands next to the Christic information. We've shown how the Fib of Nochi spiral looks compared to the natural Christic spiral. We've shown the secrets of Metatron, which is a big movement in the New Age movement, and how that has been actually tricking people into using their natural own body systems, their Merkaba fields and their own light body systems to assist in activating the anti-Christic black hole mechanics on this planet. It has been a long struggle for the last 6 years trying to bring these teachings out. And I give a lot of you credit for being there with us, because a lot of you have gone with us all over the place. We're running around trying to protect grids before the other side gets a hold of them, and then they come in, they take them out from under us. It has not been fun. We've traipsed all over from Egypt to Peru and all sorts of weird little places, like little tiny places like Andorra in between. And we've made progress. Or there would be nothing left to talk about at this point. We would be going into a black hole harnessed fall into what was called the Wiesadrak matrix. That is not occurring, which is a good thing. What is occurring is interesting, and there has been an event in this progression of what is happening with this Earth, with our galaxy, and with this particular universal Vecca system. We have been tracking this for the last 2 or 3 years intensively, as far as what are the options left for ascension, what can be done, what do we teach now, as far as when the next level of the negativity in the drama popped up. Okay, what do we do with that? There is still a way out. The Christ will eventually prevail. Well, there has been something that occurred on March 25th of 2007 that I used to ask a question to the beloveds, and I would say, well, all right, used to be, where did this mess start and where does it end? Well, I got tomes of history to explain where this started, taking it all the way back to the fall of the Borgia matrix, which is in our parallel Akasha. 450 billion years ago. That's where the VV game and all this warring and craziness started. But my question of where does it end had never been answered. We've got an answer to that question. By Sunday, you will understand a bit more about what that statement means. It was hard for me when they gave me this information this week, because it was like, throw my notebook across the room. I'm not going to tell anybody about this. I'm not talking about this stuff anymore. It's just too, where's that light at the end of the tunnel that you promised? There is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's coming sooner than we thought, actually. There are certain lights at the end of tunnels that weren't supposed to activate on this planet until 2047, when the place called Eartha was going into starfire, and this planet was going to be hosted, so it was still going to fall, but it would not be fallen and eaten by another black hole matrix. That's not happening that way anymore, because something has occurred that put our system into a new status. And it's not because something that happened on the planet. It's because of something that happened on the sun, or in the sun, more precisely. It was not something that happened by accident either. So by the end of these 2 days together, I have a job of, and it's interesting, getting some of you to a point where you understand certain things about what is called the Rashalay body. Now, not just people have Rashalay bodies, but everything has Rashalay bodies. Planets, the sun, solar systems. We've used the term before. We've taught little bits about the Rashalay body. But there is something extremely important that we need to understand about its structure, about its context within the domains of creation. We've talked a bit about tachyon cycles and key generation cycles, how the first light seed, the Taran, produces the light body, and it grows from there. There are stages in between there that have to do with what is called the Rashala bodies. There's several layers of Rashalay bodies, Rashalay, Rashali, Rashala, and the Rasha. Then there's a set of other ones that have to do with the Rishas. Now, these are all words that are completely foreign to most people down here. They used to be words that we knew by heart before we came to Earth and had our memory banks blanked out. We need to understand a bit about the structure of these bodies. They have to do with the Jaleesic templates that form the planes, that form the matter planes that we're living within. We will go through, now for some people that have been in the tribes classes, we have been giving recently, we just finished 12 tribes, 1 set, number 3 class. Every one of these 12 tribes classes where there are 24 people, and they were like pre-registered people that felt interested in it. When we put it out, we didn't even explain a lot about 12 tribes classes and what they were, because all we knew was they were Rashalay body training of some sort. That's all we knew. Well, each class teaches us something more about what that means. We've learned a huge amount of information in the first 3 classes. I mean, some of the stuff, I was just like, wow, oh, that's so cool, right? There's some really, really neat things. If you were in the first, second, or third of the classes, particularly the second or third, because that's when we started being able to do journeys, you'll be familiar with some of the material. In the first one, we were just getting the bones of the material. Now, these classes weren't, even though they're small and they're more private, they weren't meant to hold information away from the big groups. They weren't meant to, have this little like inner circle of people who knew all this other stuff, and then, people on the outside that were only getting the watered down thing. So what the beloveds have always said is what we learn after a set of 12 tribes classes, like a group of them, that will then be introduced, the pertinent parts of it will be introduced to the greater audiences. So what we are going to get are some of the information that was contained in the 12 tribes classes, the first 3. The 12 tribes classes are interesting because we're finding out what they are about. There was a call put out in frequency within those words, within that structure, when they asked us to create the opportunity for the 12 tribes smaller classes. The groups called the Aquafarion, which have to do with the aqueous matrix, who has been a host for this system for a very, very long time. These are the people that reside on Eartha and in other places. They are full Christics. They put out a call to certain soul groups of people. There was a certain signature in it that if you had what we call a query coding in your DNA template as an indigo or as an angelic human, you would get the nudge to, maybe I should be in one of those 12 tribes classes and respond to it, even though there was no detail given. And that's how the people ended up in the 12 tribes classes. And then the people who said they wanted to go, their names were literally put into lottery, like through the computer lottery system, where they were picked that way. So any influence was directly from the beloveds. We didn't pick who goes in what class. We didn't move people around. We just said, put it in the lottery, and the beloveds can move it from there. And what we're finding out that these classes are about, they have 2 elements to them. One has to do with something called a Sadhiseta journey, and another thing has to do with what is called a Cloudwalker's Master Elemental Command, stand. They have been opening something called the rings, and we'll learn about the rings and what they are because of what's been taking place in the small 12 tribes classes, as each of us in the classes are learning what is this about as we go along. It is the work that these groups of people have done that make available a particular type of journeying to a very special place called the Adashi Temples of Eartha for the masses. Now, we don't have to do an elemental stand in the larger groups. That would be, we would need an auditorium a lot bigger than this to do those for this many people. But because of the work that was done, even in just the first 3 of the 12 tribes classes. Something called the shield of Aquafarion is being activated on this planet within the indigo shield. The shield of Aquafarion has to do with the indigo shield itself, which means all the people that have indigo coding in their, in their DNA templates, in their bodies, are helping to hold a host collectively for this planet, because this planet has been damaged to the degree that it cannot activate its Rashalay body. And in the face of a starfire event, that is what this system is going through, it would, if the planet couldn't hold Rashalay activation, it would do space dust return very quickly. And we wouldn't be here 50 years from now to talk about it, any of us. So the host was set a very long time ago with groups of people who are descendants of people who came from Eartha that were called the Aquafarion races. They were part human and earth human, part cloister, and part of the Aquarii lines, or the Aurora lines of beings that live on Eartha, who came from a different matrix completely in order to salvage this one, because they came knowing that a fall was imminent in this system. They came a long, long time ago. We'll cover a little bit of the history. We have covered a lot of the history in the 12 tribes classes. And, I mean, this is history. You start 450 billion years ago with a fall in a parallel Akasha matrix, and how that ended up in the progressive deterioration over here. All of the things that we've learned about in the first layers of history, where the beast machine in Atlantis that was like, 9558 BC, that's recent. This goes all the way back to before the first seeding. Why did Terra fall? Why did Gaia fall? Why did these things happen way back in our history before the Earth was even down in density 1? And they all go back to that point of origin. And the matrix was called, it's called the Borgia matrix. We'll get into who they were and what happened, and how a great experiment they were conducting got out of control. And it led to the victim-victimizer game that has been a plague for 3 different matrices since that period. This is the end of the game at this point, because something has occurred that for a very long time the beloveds of Christics of all sorts have been trying to prevent from occurring in relation to our sun. Now, it's not something that we have to be miserable about, because there is it might appear as a cloud, the events that just took place, but there is a silver lining to that cloud, a Christic lining to that cloud as well. It means certain things about more rapid activation of the indigo shield to hold the host for this planet. It has to do with activation of something called the aqualene sun. And to understand aqualene sun and what in the world is that, it has to do with something in your own bodies, but also in your own light body structures, your Rashalay body structures, but also within the planetary Rashalay bodies. We're going to get to the point where the indigo shield, because it can activate collectively the aqualene sun within its collective Rashalay body as well as that of the individuals, that can trigger an event that is very positive for Earth. Even though the sun is having a problem, something very special can happen for Earth that has not been possible since 15,400 BC, when certain events took place that stopped a process that is a part of the natural breathing process of this planet, and that is called prana exchange. This planet has not been capable of prana exchange since 15,400 BC because of an event called the fall of Ruta. Now, to understand what these words mean, we need to understand Rashalay body anatomy, because you will find out what Ruta 15, Urta 14, and Shala 13 are. They're core gates. What are these core gates? What they have to do with the process called prana exchange. What this has to do with the process of being able to activate the Rashalay body. What the Rashalay body is, and what it allows a living system to do. And all of these things are part of what is called the krystar, eternal life cycle. We have the starborn cycle by which first creation was set in motion. But what keeps it in motion is the krystar cycle. So through this process of learning about the Rashalay body and then moving into the levels of the Rashalay body, because there's not just one, well, there's one Rashalay, but then there's a Rashali and a Rashala and a Rasha, and then there's the Rishis. There's a lot here to understand. We will make it as simple as possible, because I know we've all had anatomy to the point where our heads are spinning. If you've been with us for a while, oh no, more anatomy, right? There's balls and bones all over the place, so you can't figure out what goes where. At least you can remember you have some chakras and an auric field and all these other balls and bones, right? Well, this is going to take us into what are called the dark matter gelesic templates that all of those outer parts of our light body structures form on. These are the core templates upon which things and the outer domains manifest. When we work with the technologies that we're working with now, they are hub technologies, which means the inner domain technologies. They're not usually even released out on the outer domains as information because they're not needed. But in a system that is going into fall in the particular way this system is, we need this knowledge so we understand what we're doing. So we understand when we start to journey, where exactly are we going, right? Because there is going to be a journey that we need to do. Some of you have done it if you've been in the second or third tribes class. It is a journey. If you have done it already, you're going to you will already have your advisor person, your greeter and advisor person that you've met in your first journey. If you haven't journeyed yet, you will get to go and you will meet someone who is of the Aquafarian race who lives on Eartha. And they will work with you directly, and they will work with you as a personal advisor. You will also meet someone called a Bendy trainer. Now, the Bendy races are a certain other group they're directly Aurora Hub crossover groups. They're not the races. They're not part human, where the Aquafarian are part them and part human. So you will meet an Aquafarian being that will. It's like having an angel on your shoulder, really, because you can talk with them about anything. You can go to these temples once you have access at any time. There's a process of going to the temples of Adashi that are on Eartha. You'll see where they are, and if you didn't understand Rashalay body anatomy, particularly on the planetary level, you wouldn't understand where they are in relation to where we are. They're much closer than anybody thinks. Just look up. Yes, there's many interesting things happening in Earth's atmosphere, a different angular rotation of particle spin that science doesn't know about, or some science does, actually. They just don't tell us about. So we'll learn where the Adashi temples are. We will learn by the end of tomorrow night. We will do the first access key journey so everyone can get there. Now, the access key journey wasn't something people could do until the 12 tribes classes, the ones that came before this workshop. They opened the access to do this through the stands that they have been doing. And because they were the ones that responded to the call that had a particular Aquari signature to it, which means they had in their DNA templates the descendant from the Aquafarian codes. It were those codes that allowed them the access to open the particular, they call them the rings of the shield of Aquafarian. And that allows to open certain, let's say, frequency bands or planes within the atmosphere of the Earth, some of them down inside the Earth from the core going up to the surface, and others going up from the surface up out to the magnetosphere. There are certain planes that can be opened, and when you are able to pass through those planes, you are able to access the physical body of Eartha. And we'll explain how could there be a physical body of another planet or star or whatever around this one. We'll explain bits of that, of how that works. Earth has long been a hosting planet. It was hosted into a larger star during the Amenti rescue mission when it was first started. So we'll touch on that a little bit. So you have context, so the rational mind can understand a little bit. When we start to journey, where are we going? Right? Yes, it is a real place. It is a physical place. That's what is fascinating. It's not just a mental state. But to get there first, we have to learn to be what are called gliders. And that's where we learn to project in our Rashalay. The next phase that hasn't started yet, not even with the 12 tribes classes, are called sliders. This is where... Yes. Now, sliding can't occur until something happens on the planet. And this has to do with the Peru trip. And we'll talk a little bit about that probably on Sunday. So right now, we're in glider training mode, where we are learning to project and get access into the Adashi temples, where we can, meet our personal greeter, who will become an advisor. And if you don't like the person you meet, you can ask for another one. They don't take it personally. These are the ones that you can just like moan and groan to, right? If you just need somebody to listen. And they're very sweet and kind and that kind of thing. Where they will also, in this journey, the first access key journey, once you get there, they will take you to meet a bendy trainer. Now, the trainers are the Aurora race ones. They actually are out of the aqueous matrix, which is the parallel adjacent Akasha, who has been hosting this matrix so it didn't fall ever since the fall of the Borgia matrix 450 billion years ago. So these guys are very, very old Christics, and they're here for technicals, all right? They're here to help you with very technical things that have to do with understanding your larger contracts, understanding... they deal with technicals, like your job, whatever your job was that you came here to do in relation to the collective of people that are working the Christ here, and they will teach you technical things about stargates and about what you need to do with your body. They may teach you some technical healing things, where the Aquafarian people are there to basically help. It's kind of like we're crawling through the gates going, help, our planet is falling. Can I have a nervous breakdown yet? And you can just kind of cry on their shoulder and then pull yourself together and they'll say, you feel better now? It's like, yeah. And they will take you to, they will work with your individual issues, right? If you have, a grief issue, or if you have an anger issue, or if you have any issue at all that you're trying to fix or trying to make feel better in yourself, you can talk to these guys, and it will be one. You're assigned one. And they take their commitments to us. They are, from their perspective, looking at a host wave coming in from a planet that is falling, and a whole bunch of people are going to be evac'd to their planet. They are making the arrangements to where do you put them, first of all, because A, the radiation level in the atmosphere on Earth would fry us all instantly in our current biologies. There has to be an intermediary zone where we can evolve fast and adapt to the level of radiation, of Christic radiation, that is in that reality field. This is where something called the Aurora zone comes in. And it is an in-between place. The in-between place has to do with what we've referred to as the gyrodome technologies. So we will explain these once we've got basic Rochelet body structure and that straightened out. And then we see how that applies to the planet and how that applies to the planet with inside the star called Eartha. Then we can start exploring what all of these things mean. In the meantime, there's a whole bunch of new information. This information has all been coming through since right before FOL, January 2007. And that's like... There's not even time to synthesize the graphs properly. There's not even time. Most things that I'm dealing with look like this. Hieroglyphics things, yeah. It's just a mess. However, some of the graphs that we've been using and building through the 12 Tribes classes, they're enough to give the visual reference, to hold the math on the visuals so you can get an understanding. By the end of this, we'll find out on Sunday, it will be Sunday, that we talk about the thing about the sun. Because it's also on Sunday that the light at the end of the tunnel, as well as the dark cloud at the end of the tunnel, will come together. And hopefully the light comes first, because I always like to tell you the solution before we look at the problem, because then the problem doesn't look so bad, right? They want me to, all right. They want me to say this tonight. Do I have to say that tonight? Yeah, all right. Yeah. Just so they're saying, just so they know the difference of the significance of what is taking place now. Up until the 25th of March, there were certain options available for Earth, such as hosted Lone Star Fall, where it could possibly fall into a Christ fall matrix situation, where you couldn't ascend out of it, but it was still reformatted as a Christic structure that would eventually go back space dust return, but it would have like 3 billion years left before having to worry about that. That was where we left off. That has changed as of March 25th. It has changed in a way that we'll talk about, but the significance of the work that we are doing, and there will be not only the access key journey that will be run on Saturday night, but on Sunday there is going to be a very big exciting thing for the Indigo Shield first, that later will allow something to happen in Peru. But if certain things If the Aquarii weren't with us at this point, and if something called the field of the aqualene sun weren't being activated in our fields because of what happened on the 25th of March, within 50 years on this planet, everything would have been fried. The sun is going through a transition, and that transition has to do with gamma ray bursts. And the cycles, they haven't happened yet, right? Because of the fields that the indigo shield here has the capacity to anchor with the help of the ones from Eartha and the aqueous matrix, it can be shielded where instead of everything being fried within 50 years, there is a period of evolution that is still possible where things can evolve out of this system where Earth, and it's not just Earth at this point, it's the solar system that is affected by the sun. The sun has been compromised by the same black hole technologies that we've talked about on Earth, but most of our focus has been trying to prevent activation of those technologies during this stellar activation cycle. We've not been successful in preventing the other side from activating them. But what has occurred with the sun put a rush on the whole journey, because if the aqualene sun field wasn't going to be activated early, that would have actually been 2047 before the beloveds even worried about activating this field in the Rastrale bodies of the indigos and also of Earth to the degree that it could hold. If that wouldn't happen, the radiation buildup, starting with the first pulse that is due in sometime in spring, and I wouldn't doubt if it's around Hitharo, of 2008, the first bursts would start. And that means solar flare activity at first. But it means also something that would be so strong that it would very rapidly make the ozone layer disappear. And it would cause destruction, mass destruction on this planet. There would be no life left within 50 years, is what they said. Now, there are things being done to prevent that. All right? We can't prevent what has happened already in the core of the sun. But we can prevent, or we can't, but we can help. We can anchor the prevention for a transmutation screen. Imagine the sun, and imagine if it were going to release bursts of things that were toxic to the radiation levels toxic to the life on this planet. There is a type of buffer field called the aqualene sun that has to do with Rastrale body activation that can be activated to create a transmutation screen. The radiation will still come to Earth, but it will transmute. Much of it will be transmuted off as it passes through this screen. As long as that screen is there, we'll have many generations left here. As far as the evolution, the planet's still falling, but we'll still have evolutionary time. Will we have 3 billion years? No. We'll talk about how long is left. And it's not so much about what's happened to Earth, it's about what's going on with the sun. And we'll talk about that part on Sunday, how long. It's your generations and your grandchildren and all those, they'll be fine, all right, as far as the radiation levels on the planet. But the beloveds would like you to understand that the energy work you're participating in at this point is so significant. It is so significant that it is making the difference. If we weren't here as a collective indigo shield of indigos and humans that are able to anchor the Aquarian frequencies that come from the shield of Aquafarion, they would not be able to activate the aqualene sun. And if they weren't able to do that, there would be no screen to transmute the greatest degree of those bursts that are going to be coming off the sun. They have said, too, that our sciences will notice an even greater increase in solar flare activity by early next year sometime. And that we'll start to see signs of what they were saying was true. But we can at least smile when we see them coming through because we know they're being transmuted to a degree where we're not going to be fried. Science will probably get a bit worried when they see strange things happening with the solar emissions. And at least we can know that there is a protection field that is part of this. There is also a happy thing at the end of this, at least for some. The fact that, we can hold anchor into the Earth, this field that will allow the transmutation frequencies from the sun to buffer at the sun level. The beloveds are holding it on that level. We would anchor it here in... they're saying we'd anchor both because we're actually keyed to the sun as well. Our shields, the indigo shields, are actually keyed to the sun as well as to the Earth. Okay, so we are actually helping to hold the solar transmutation field. Now, that will allow for beings of all kinds, be they rising, falling, or anywhere in between on this planet, and of any of the kingdoms, plant, animal, humanoid, that kind of thing. It will give them a buffer, so these emissions wouldn't affect them as they as us or them as they otherwise would. But for the people who actually carry Christ code, like if you're fully Metatronic, this won't apply to you. But if you're still are able to run any of the crystal spiral, any of the frequencies we work with, even on asking for an Adashi host situation, because when you get to the Adashi temples, if you're worried that you got Metatronic and you're not sure, you can always say, you guys can figure it out, scan me. If I need something, there is a receiver that you can be given, and it's not something that gets implanted in you. It's something they will give you to hold, and you can do what you want with it. You can hang it in your field, you can put it in a drawer at home, whatever. It will be an etheric crystal that will allow you, if you're worried about the Metatronic stuff, to be able to receive and transmute that even if you have Metatronic codes. It means you will be able to still run the frequencies of the aqualene sun on the crystal river currents, which are the triple crystal spiral currents coming from the natural crystic frequencies. So there is an ability, even if a person is like an incarnate of one of the fallen races, because some people are on the planet. They don't usually show up at our workshops, but even those people that would actually get fried by these frequencies, because their codes, if nothing, they won't be able to transmute hardly any of the gamma ray bursts coming off the sun. They would have a hard time even transmuting the frequencies coming off the transmutation field of the aqualene sun. So it would expedite the disintegration of the body template for people like that. Because we're here and we can access Adashi temples and ask the beloveds to assist, as individuals, if you're worried about that, you can ask for one of the receivers that will allow you to anchor aqualene sun and for your body pattern to be able to hold it. The more of us that do that, the more that will be grounded here, so it will buffer the other people who will never do a technique from us, right, like the Metatronic crew out there. But it will assist them, and it will slow the process of them having negative effects from both the solar emissions and the emissions that will come from the aqualene sun, because both are radiation frequencies that are coming in. The one is a radiation that's here to help us by transmuting the other radiation that would just wipe all of us out on this planet. But the aqualene sun frequencies have a special gift. For those who can run Christ, they give a huge burst of cellular template regeneration. So we have an ability to use these frequencies. They haven't said how yet. It's just a matter of getting them here first. But once the aqualene sun fields are activated on this planet, we will have the ability to work with certain technologies that very quickly assist in healing of what they're calling the cellular template. They said for some people it will mean being able to heal certain things that have been bothering them biologically. Not everybody will be able to instantly cure yourself of whatever, but it will give you a boost. It will give us all a boost that can really, really assist in not only transmuting things that are the symptoms of the genetic mutation that everything on this planet carries, but for some people they will actually be able to transmute the entire mutation, which means they will not only be able to be gliders and then sliders where they can slide through into the intermediary aurora zone between Earth and Eartha, but some will be able to be full spanners, which means they will be able to walk through. And that would be really, really neat. You can't walk through onto Eartha with the current biology and the mutations it holds, because the template is so small and twisted with these mutations, it wouldn't be able to process the natural crystic frequencies that are the natural light field of surface level of Eartha. So there's a lot of gifts, actually. There's more to it than this. But what we're here to do this weekend, it's a continuation of what we started in the 12 Tribes third class. We anchored something called here we go again. I always have a hard time saying this when I have to see it in my head. The Ansha Tesa passage. This is I'll explain more it is when I have the maps up. But this is a frequency beam that comes directly from what is called the aqueous matrix, which is where the aquarii exist and all of that thing. That is the parallel adjacent akasha to ours. They are the one that have been holding the Crystal River host with our matrix and the Wisa Lay matrix, which was what Wisa matrix was before its Vekas fell. The Anastasia passage is from the hub level of that matrix. We've talked before about the inner hub domains, then the middle Edon domains, then the outer radon domains, and we are in the outer domains in our system here. We have in our system something called the Hathor hubs, right? The hub domains are where the Hathor races are. They work with us, and there is also a hub for every Akasha matrix will have its hub domain and its middle domain. Well, the hub level, the inner level of the aqueous matrix are involved at this point, and they have opened a link between their hub, our hub, and their outer ones to our outer ones. They are creating a literal open flow host. This is key to, well, it was key to getting us through Eartha going into starfire, because Earth can't starfire, but Earth is going to, which means it's going to pop off and disappear and leave Earth hanging there. And if Earth doesn't have something to support it, it is going to tumble into black hole, fall into one of the other black holes. All right, that was already solved because the Anastasia passage was going to be anchored in 2047. Well, actually, we're going to anchor it in Peru, and it was going to be dormant until 2047. Then we were going to open it, which would allow for this full host that would allow for the activation of the aqualene sun fields in the Rachelet body levels of the people on this planet that can hold those frequencies, which are the indigos and the angelic humans with aquafarian codes, but also within the Eartha system. It allows for the creation of the Aurora zone. The Aurora zone is what, when we've talked about the gyrodome technology before, it is a technology that allows for a host domain to be created that looks like this one, sort of, and looks like Eartha, sort of. It's kind of a blend of the two places. And there will be times when, for example, you could be driving on a road, and all of a sudden, in seconds, you just went like 10 exits. How did I do that? You pass through a little bit of these zones. There's also other zones that can do that aren't good ones. But the Aurora zone, once it's activated, and that has to do with first anchoring the Anastasia passage, then opening the Anastasia passage, and then taking that opening to Peru and creating, for the first time since 15,400 BC, prana exchange with the core gates of this planet. So this is the process we're involved in. What this particular group is going to be given the technologies for is you'll be able to, first of all, go on the journey that is called the Access Key Journey. And again, if you're new here and you don't, it makes you nervous, you don't have to participate in anything. It's never mandatory. But first is a journey, and if you've done this journey before from being in one of the tribes classes, there'll be a certain point for each of you that follow the journey, just like you did the first time. There'll be a certain point where your advisor kind of like taps you on the shoulder or nudges you and says, hello, come over this way, I want to show you something else. And they will take you individually to things that have to do directly with you personally into a place called the library. You'll get to the Adashi Temple, but then you'll be taken, if you've already been here once, you'll be taken to, escorted, not taken, but escorted to the library. Not abducted to the library. No, you'll be offered the opportunity to go, and if you don't want to go, so never mind, I don't want to go, right? You can just sit there in the greeting room, the first place you end up when you take these journeys. But for the people who have been there once already, your advisor, if you would like to go, will give you an individual nudge at what point as you're listening to because this has to be taped. It has to be the first time the journey was run because it carries the carrier wave that carries the access keys. That's why everybody's got to use that one that we taped, or not taped, but CD'd, whatever they do these days. We have a CD of it. Recorded. That's a good word. Thank you. Right? I'm still stuck in tape land, 70s. Right. But there will be opportunities for the other people. If you haven't done the journey before, it's important to follow the journey and follow it through, and to get like you're picking up a whole set of frequencies in your Rachelet body that actually open tracks that are already in your Rachelet bodies. You already have them, but the process of moving through these journeys, this isn't just a nice little sightseeing tour. It's the mathematical pattern, the encryption, that literally is the, say, a bridge zone between your encryption of biology and Rachelet now here and the place you want to go, which is an Adashi temple. All right, so these journeys, where they say turn left, don't turn right. I mean, there's every one of these things has to do with the maps. All right, the maps, which we call the vertical starfire maps, that start at Earth's core and go way up through the atmosphere and show you where Eartha is and show you where various different levels or planes are, including the subterranean temples, the cloud cities. There's all sorts of things happening up there that some people get glimpses every once in a while of the cloud cities. All right, where you'll be looking at the clouds and just every once in a while it just looks really strange. Or you could have swore you saw like buildings or it looked like a city from a distance or something. You kind of go, well, they see them in China frequently, from what I've heard in the last couple of years, and the government tries to just call them mirages. Yes, you're all hallucinating, right? They're not really there; they're just reflections. Why did that city not look like the other one, right? If that's a reflection, why didn't it look like the one it was supposed to be reflecting, right? Like I know, like the Empire State Building was not in that cloud, but it is here, so that can't be a reflection. Anyway, there are weird phenomena taking place on the planet already that are being given really lame labels to try to explain them away. There are things called cloud cities. They have a specific place in terms of planes that exist within our atmosphere that have to do with the structure of the planetary Rashale body. So we'll learn about that, and we'll learn about the vertical maps. And it's in getting to the point where you understand the vertical maps enough to see how that works. When you do your glide projection, when you learn to be a glider, you will know where you're going. Because you're not just going to some hypothetical place in your mind. You're going to a very specific location up in the atmosphere, and then turning in a certain way. That's why the turns are important. If it says right, go right. We don't want to lose you left someplace. You might fall into what's called a hibernation zone. There are zones up there that are not nice, too, that have to do with a distortion in the planetary Rashale body that has taken place progressively through the use of the beast machine and also the threshold technologies. The threshold technologies and the beast machine, as we refer to them, are the anti-krystar black hole technologies. But they're not the same technology. They are two different technologies that were linked together. One came from a time rip technology that is very different than the more organized creating like time warps and what are the other things called? The rips are the unstable ones. That's the one I'm looking for. Thank you. Remind me, I'm a bit tired tonight. Wormhole technologies go with the Metatronic type of technologies. And yes, they're anti-krystic, but they're much more stable. There's another type of technologies that were developed by a different group, and they were actually developed first. They were built on time rips, which are like making rips instead of holes, and the rips are much more unstable. And from that, the threshold technologies came. And then there was a certain point in the history of our matrix and the Borgia matrix that fell, that those two technologies were linked together to create a mega beast, basically. And what we're dealing with on the planet right now is the fact that that mega beast has been activated. And that is why the end game is here, as far as long time ago, 450 billion years ago. And that's way before the Earth, Terra, the fall of Terra happened, where the Earth plane and the solar system here was created. That point in time is where the Crystal River Cooperative was formed, with the aqueous matrix at the lead. The aqueous matrix was close enough to the Borgia matrix that just fell and to the two matrices the Borgia matrix were attacking, but far enough away that they couldn't get attacked. So they could hold host, and they could have ended it then, but if they did, everything in our matrix that had already been pierced, our ECA had been pierced by their time rip technologies, it would have taken out all of the life field at that point in ours as well. It would have put us all into quarantine, and we all would have gone back to space dust with the Borgia matrix. So there was a decision a long time ago, 450 billion years ago, made to do a very long-term host, to give, first of all, this matrix a chance for its ECA to heal. There were different life fields seated in here as guardians to try to assist in this process. All of the fall situations that occurred from the fall of Lyra 250 billion years ago in this matrix, all of those things, all of those convolutions came from the problems started with the victim-victimizer game program that was started in the parallel Akasha-Veka Borgia matrix that fell. We are at the end game now, because now is the point in time where they're calling it the last stand of Aurora. And this is where the Aurora race is coming again, and put up the protection field. This was what was the last thing that could be done. They could have done this a long time ago. What the protection field does, it's already underway. It's nothing we're going to do that's going to, we don't have any guilt attached to this one. But on March 15th of 2007, there was a stand-down order issued by the Crystal River Councils, which are the 3 different akashas running the Christ, that warned the Borgia to stop. They were going to do one more thing. They had one more line of attack, trying to get a hold of the Templar here, because they're trying to attack Earth to get a hold of Eartha in order to get a hold of the Sun, to get a hold of Sala, so they can take the whole matrix into their black hole system for quantum food. All right, when you're in a black hole system, you need to feed it, or eventually it goes to space dust return. So they have been trying for a long time to ingest or assimilate this matrix. They had one more trick up their sleeve as far as the technologies they've been using, which is called the Borgia time rip triangulation. They were warned not to use it, because if they used it, if they did what the beloved saw they were aiming to do as far as what they were going to throw into this system, that they had no choice but to put up the screens, to put up the buffer screens early. Those buffer screens would be activating the gyrodome early, activating the full aurora fields early, and opening the Anselm passage in order to anchor the aqualene sun, so this matrix didn't get dragged right in. And they were warned to stand down, just like, stop it already. You know, we don't want to do this, because if we do this, if the beloveds do this to protect this system, which they have every right to do, and if they didn't love us, they wouldn't bother. But because they care, and there's people here who have worked so hard for so many incarnations to try to save this matrix as part of the Crystal River team, they're not going to just abandon us now. Plus, the Earth body itself made a decision. It does not want to be assimilated. It would choose space dust return before it would allow itself to be used and abused and turned into a place where horrible things, more horrible things, could happen to other life forms. And that's what its destiny would be if it were assimilated into the Borgia matrix. But they told them, stand down. If they had done a stand down when they were asked on March 15th, A, the sun wouldn't be having the problem it is right now. B, they wouldn't be having the problem they're having right now. Because when they activated the first layers of the aqualene sun for protection here to stop the Borgia from doing the last big thing, which would have caused the same thing that happened in the sun to happen in the planetary core, and we would have all been stuck here. None of us, nothing would have gotten out. If they had listened, they wouldn't be in the process of having what they threw, and once they throw it, it can't release. It has to circulate. Well, now it hits a buffer field, and it bends back, and it goes right back to its source. They have one way of coming out of frequencies and another going back. They have a particle-antiparticle wave collision taking place in their matrix. They are finding out what fast space dust means. This is what they are, and they set it in motion. It wasn't because the aqualene sun was done here. That had to be done here, or we would have all been dragged into there. Excuse me, what are you supposed to say? Okay, you can go eat that nice Christic matrix too, or that's okay, you can take out those people who are trying to do the right thing just because you're being really, really bad and you have a bad attitude, and you were asked to stand down and asked not to throw that frequency. Why? Because we didn't want to have to put up the buffer screen, but because we have a commitment to those Christics that we will put up the buffer screen. And if your frequencies hit the buffer screen, it's going to come back and hit you in the face. And they told them this. Basically, well, I don't know what words they used in their language, but it was the equivalent of the middle finger in America. Right? So it's like, all right. So at the moment, from what I hear, the Borgia matrix people are trying to find what matrix they can hop into, because theirs isn't going to be there for very long. They are aiming for this one, but they're having problems with that because what they threw caused certain conditions to occur on the sun that we will talk about that have to do with the gamma bursts that are coming, that are going to be transmuted enough so we can all still live and breathe here. The drama escalated one more time as of the 15th of March. There was a round of really wacky, there's a period between the 15th of March right through our 12 Tribes 3 class going up to about the 23rd of March, when just the energy that was flying in the astral was awful. I don't know if any of you experienced it, but it was just like, I wanted to jump out of my own body. I couldn't stand the frequencies running. There was a big play that were made on the people that are known as the Golden Dragon groups on the planet. The Golden Dragons are ones who are of the Aquafarian descent, they're indigos of the Aquafarian descent, who carry the antidote to dragon codes, but the gold ones that are particularly keyed to one of the core gates called Urta. Well, they went after Urta and tried to activate it on full reversal, which would have allowed them to take over the bodies on the entire planet of everything that had gold dragon coding. They made a big play for the golds. They went for Urta first because Urta had been compromised a long time ago, but it was dormant. The gold dragons are the key to bringing Urta back as far as getting it functional again. They were aiming for first the golds and then the ones that are connected to Ruta, which are the purple dragons. They carry the core codes to, these are core gates of the planet that link our planet to Eartha. Both of those, Urta and Ruta, had been compromised at different periods in our not too distant history that we'll touch on a little bit so you see what happened and when. The only place, the only of the three gates, the three core gates, that hadn't been fully compromised was called Shala 13. And the core levels of that, the inner 7 layers of that gate, out of the 15 layers that a gate would have, 12 plus 3, had remained under the Eartha, Aquafarian, and Bendy Aurora races' control and protection. That is why we come here. Shala 13 links directly into what's called Shalon 7, which is kind of like its cover name. But this area that is connected to the Arc 7 gate in Mesa, but it's not just located at Mesa. It's much larger, the area. It encompasses this particular area of Phoenix, a little bit of Scottsdale, a little bit of Mesa, a little bit of Tempe, all of that. We are sitting, we come here because it is the one set of safe grids that have been on the planet, and it is through this place that was called the womb of Aquari, because this is where Aquari races, the Aquafarian races that were part Aquari and part angelic human and angelic human cloister, that were brought from here to Eartha in order to create a race strain that could be the full guardians. When the human race had become so compromised by the raids after Atlantis, there was a bioregenesis attempt made, and an attempt has worked because we're still here, or we wouldn't have heard the call and 12 tribes never would have showed up, and we'd all be not in a very pleasant place by now. But this was known as the womb of Aquari because it was where Shala 13 was, and it was through the Shala 13 gate that they could still bring anybody between Earth and Eartha and into Aurora zones. And from this place, we are able to activate the indigo shield on the Aquari codes that will allow us to run the protection fields of the aqualene sun, and then be able to take that to planetary SG5, which is Peru, but it's more than just that. There's a direct connection. They haven't revealed what it is yet. Why the gyrodome gets activated in Peru at Machu Picchu, I'm not sure why, but it's directly connected to Shala 13 as well. So from what we're doing here, we will be able to go, the people who are going to Peru with us, we will be able to finish that there. That will allow the slider zones to open. So as we learn to begin the process of doing the glides to the Adashi temples, which are the projections using Rachalet body, but your physical body is fully still here. Once the slide zones open, certain things happen in the planetary Rachalet body because they will happen first in the indigo collective Rachalet body. And that will allow the planetary Rachalet body to follow suit, so it can have a host of the indigos are hosting the Rachalet body activation of the planet at this point. Once the slider zones are open and certain fields come together, it creates an area that is physical, a three-dimensional place, just like this is a three-dimensional place, just like Eartha is a three-dimensional place, a three-dimensional in-between place, where you could literally be driving down a road and, here in this area, this three-dimensional Earth, and pass through one of the, I don't know what they even call them. They're not exactly gates. They're more like valves that circulate on occasion because the gyrodome spins. You could drive through and end up there at a completely different place that is a safe zone, where you would find different people, and some people from here, some people not from here, where we will meet our greeting committees that will explain to us what's the next level in ascending off a planet that is in this state. All right? So we will be able to begin training as gliders and then upscale that to sliders. We will start having slide experiences. And, slide in, slide out, slide in, slide out, where some of them will first appear as like time distortions or missing time or deja vu. Wait a minute. Wasn't I here before? No, they just put you back a little bit before where they picked you up from, that kind of stuff. It's the next stage. The stage after that, once the slider fields are open, which are called the aurora fields, then there will be the ability to work. And the personal work that people who participate in these, what you will be doing with your own personal ones, and it will be ones that know you from Eartha. Everybody here has family there. And that family will work with you to help you understand your position here. And they will help you understand what you need to do and how you can use the aqualene sun technologies to heal the DNA to the point where you can, some of us will make it and some of us won't make it, as spanners who can actually walk through these zones and turn up on the surface of Eartha. And have like a life there, and then walk back through. Because once you get that far, you can't just leave everybody sitting here. If they help you to get that far, they would expect you to be part of teams that would come back and assist others in gliding or sliding or whatever their highest potential of Christic evolution is. There's also going to be a period of time where indigos and descendants of indigos here will be holding the host for this planet, to get as much of the life field evolved out of it and off of it before certain things happen in the solar system. And it is a commission that some indigos will accept, some already have. Some, it will be things they will talk to you about, larger things, bigger things. But this isn't a short-term thing. This isn't like, oh, shucks, we don't get out of here by 2014 with an early starfire, do we? No. Because that was really, when it started to come through that was a potentiality before the drama got worse and worse. That looked really appealing. Actually, great. Starfire. You got to the point where, if Earth can't make starfire, that's too bad, and it's a shame we can't do anything about it, but let's go. How do we go? Get us out of here, please. Right? No, we're not getting out that fast. And it would probably feel really bad if we did, and then found that the planet exploded when it didn't have to because all the indigos ran. You'd feel really bad when you got up there, and then you'd probably do something really dumb like enter another fall system to try to make yourself feel better and get it right that time. No. No, this is the last time, I think, for all of us. So we have a very interesting weekend unfolding. I have some of the diagrams that we've been using progressively, putting them together, and they're not done. They're scratchy, but they're enough to get the points across. But they wanted me to use them in a different order than I do in the 12 Trebs classes. So you can understand Rashalay body. There's a few that they think they're going to throw at me when I get back up there tonight that I can start doing and realize that it takes 3 weeks to do that level of detail and say, all right, what is the quick version? But we will get enough of the information together in a sequence where it should, by the end of this, you should be able to understand enough about what Rashalay body is in terms of the dark matter templates that control the templates of matter and what that has to do with keys and cycling and breathing of matter forms and planets and yourself. And they say there is the highlight of the techniques that we will do during this workshop. The journey is one, but the highlight will be on Sunday evening, and it has to do with the indigo shield for the first time since it's been on planet since 15,400. The indigo shield will engage its first prana exchange. Now, this is really significant. To understand why it's significant, it might help to understand what the heck is a prana exchange anyway, right? It has to do with core breathing, and it has to do with something that has not been possible here on this planet since 15,400 BC when the core gate called Ruta went into reversal with a lot of help from not our friends. Yeah. So the indigo shield, because of its link to the Aquafarian races of Eartha, and because the indigo shield has members of it that are Aquafarian descent, they have part of the codes in their DNA template that go with the core prana seed of Eartha. Not Earth, but Eartha. All right? So, indigos, if Eartha begins its prana exchange cycle, which it is beginning, the indigo shield is capable next of engaging prana exchange through Eartha. It's a hosted prana exchange. And then once that happens, once we get to Peru, with people who are actively prana exchanging in their cores, we can do the same. Give a hosted prana exchange capacity to Earth, which means Earth can temporarily breathe again. It's kind of like putting Earth on a respirator. It's made possible because of the Anshantesa passage coming from the aqueous matrix hub. These words sometimes are hard to get my tongue around. That host coming through the hubs will allow, if the indigo shield here can get its prana exchange going, and you'll see what that is by the time we get to the exercise to do it, we can get the core gates of Earth to do that temporarily, to allow for a host, but it will be connected to our hub through the Anshantesa hub in order to allow it to breathe, which means cycle, which means the Earth will be able to temporarily, while we're here, activate its own Rashalay body. Because we are hosting it and because Earth is hosting us. That will get us at least through the 2047-2051 period of Earth's starfire. But it will take us beyond that too. So this is the beginning of something very, very big. And I thank all of you for being here with us and for keeping up the pace with us, because this work has not been easy for any of us. Yeah, it would have been much easier to teach about angels coming to get you after you leave your body and leave it at that. But sometimes, never mind. I was just going to say, sometimes you get what you pay for. As far as attention goes, most people that follow this work are are into it and keep wanting to know the next upgrade and what's the next level. I don't like to use the word follow, because none of us are followers here. We're all leaders trying to remember the way home. All right? But the people who have stayed with the work and the upgrades and the information, they've put a lot of energy and a lot of time and a lot of money into having the information so they could do the activations with their own bodies. And that's a lot of commitment. And it takes a lot more, I guess, than just going someplace, having somebody pat you on the head and say, "There, you're ordained," and the angels will take you now, so you don't have to worry about anything. Go back to your life, and sure, if you do sins, just confess them on Sundays, and you're okay. You get what you pay for in that regard. These are the real teachings. I know that. We know that, or we wouldn't be able to teach them. We wouldn't be able to stand as the three speakers, as the faces that are put on this time around the translation of the teachings, if we didn't know they were true. So if it seems a little difficult, if sometimes the technicals are enough to make you fall asleep 3 seconds after you start looking at them, that's okay. A lot of people have that experience at first, sometimes for years. If you're new and you're not used to the frequencies running, you may find yourself falling asleep during it, or glazing, where you feel like you're going into a coma. It means your DNA is on frequency saturation, but that's okay. You can let yourself drift. You can let yourself even go to sleep. But we've had snoring workshops before where most of the people were asleep. That was Felix, that one, remember? Yeah. Where you could hear them on the tape. Your consciousness transfers into the astral level, into the astral field. It actually goes into it's more than the astral. It goes into a Rashalay state, and you will pick up the information there. So it's like you're listening from a higher level, because your body kind of said, nope, can't take any more frequency, so you jumped out of body in order to get the rest, and you'll bring it back in when you wake up, but it'll take a while for it to sequence into knowledge or memory, but you will still have the frequency of the knowledge with you. So if you feel like you need to fall asleep during the workshop, we don't take it personally. We're used to this. It's been happening for ages. Right?
Just be gentle with the bass tones.
Just be gentle with the bass tones. The snoring. The snoring symphony. Yeah, it's really funny, actually. I find it very sweet, because a lot of times, I guess I could appreciate it maybe more than anybody, what that means, because as the line of information, as we're dealing with higher and higher frequencies, now we're coming from 3 different matrices on the Crystal River line, and now we're coming with the hub line from the aqueous matrix being added to that. These frequencies are massive. My little template, and I have a lot of extra bits in the template to hold a blue flame position. The flame holders have those in order to anchor, the larger currents for the group. I am fried. Usually it took me 6 months to process the Hathor line, where it didn't make me ill to run it, all right, where I had to sit and I could take down half a paragraph and then crash, and I would be in a ball, rolled up in a blanket under the table. I learned to keep a blanket and a pillow under the table and my notebook on top of the table. It took me about 6 months before it was real easy, and the Hathor line came real easy, and that was from the hubs here. They just put us online right before Christmas, actually, with the crystal river, the tri-matrix. That's 3 Akasha matrices, crystal spiral, right? That was quite an upgrade, but fortunately, they weren't talking to me in that way. They were still stepping down through ones from Eartha that I was used to communicating with, so I could deal with that. Yeah, it didn't do anything. Now that they've got the other line coming in as well, where they've amped the frequency with the hub from the aqueous matrix, it's the up and down deal again, where even, this is why things look like this. I'll get 3 sentences down, and I feel like I'm going to explode. The heat from the wave is so hot. So I just have to lay the body down and go out and process it out there, and then step it down, then bring it back through. Wake up, try to do another block. So people that fall asleep in workshops, I understand what it means to have to go out of body to deal with the frequency of the information. Yeah, and it is endearing. It's like realizing we're capable of so much more. It's just our bodies that sometimes limit us, but if we're patient with them, that stretches. So what might have put you to sleep like 10 minutes through a technique when you first started, you might get 20 minutes through the technique in 3 months, and by the end of the year, you might be able to stay awake through the whole technique. And then by the year after that, it's simple, right? Yeah, I can do it in your sleep. You're doing shorthand on it. You know what I mean? It's showing you that your template's expanding, your consciousness is expanding, your ability to hold frequency is expanding. So for anybody that needs to fall asleep while we go through things, don't worry about it. We'll just, if you think you might, just hopefully you can nudge a neighbor and say, don't let me fall off my chair, please. That kind of thing. And keep an eye on snoring neighbors just so they don't fall off their chair. Yeah. Anyway, what we're going to do is, what time are we doing what tomorrow? Because there's a whole bunch of stuff scheduled before I'm doing my thing, aren't there? What?
Matt is going to announce some schedule changes.
Okay.
Right. The simple thing for you to say now is that I will come on and do the beginning of the technique at 2 o'clock.
You're coming at 2?
Yeah, you'll come in at 3 through 6, dinner break. Everyone will reconvene at 8. You will present for another 2 hours till 10, and then I'll do the journey with them from 10 through midnight. And that's it.
Okay.
Matt will explain the changes in the early part of the day schedule, because things are being pulled forward in the day.
Okay. All righty. We're just getting a schedule check for tomorrow. I always love schedules. All right. After... Yeah, Mac is... Okay, I can do this. Mac is going to announce changes in what has already been talked about that I don't know about. That was the schedule of things that were scheduled before we were to come on. All right, so that's, I guess, being pushed forward a bit because we needed more time as far as our time on. Az is going to come in and run what's called the pre-activation sequence. There is a sequence of techniques that need to be done once before a person can go on any of the journeys. All right, it activates certain things in your Ashley body and in your DNA template that allows your body to let your mind go there, actually. It frees your Ashley body so you can do Ashley projection. That will be done between 2 and 2:45? Yeah. Yeah, it's about 40, before 3. All right, and then from 3 to 6, I'm coming on. All right, then we start with technicals. That's graphs and that stuff, and that's where we'll deal with Rashleigh body and understanding that basic structure. And then we'll do a dinner break, and from 6 through 8. 6 through 8 dinner break. Yeah, I'll be back here at 8. 8, 9, 9 to 10. And then I get 2 more hours on from 8 to 10. 2 more hours of technicals. And we'll get into planetary Rashleigh at that point, because before you do this journey, you need to understand the vertical maps, and all those things before that you need to understand the vertical maps. So, in 5 hours, broken up in 2 pieces, we will get down the vertical maps. Then, between 10 and
11:45, approximately.
10 and 11:45, we'll run the journey. Okay? That journey is long. It's like an hour and 45 minutes long. All right, it is a journey. These aren't little meditation things, take a trip to the temple across the street thing. These are and this is just the access key journey. This particular one is important because in listening to it from the original transmission, there is a wave that is in there that they ran through the first time it was given, which was during the 12 Tribes 2 class. and it was the first time that could open, and it carries the opening frequencies. There's going to be a whole series of journeys going through the Adashi temples where you can do all sorts of neat stuff. Every 12 tribes class will be getting a journey. So we've had 1 and 2. They're not releasing 2 yet. I don't know why, but I don't know if they're going to, I think they're going to shift them a bit for the bigger groups, because the 12 tribes journeys have been keyed toward opening those let's say gates or rings and things, where once they are open in the smaller 12 tribes classes, then it is just a matter of getting yourself through them. So you're not doing heavy duty planetary work at the time you're trying to go through. So I'm not sure if from journey 2 all the way up through 12, because by the end of the 12 tribes class, we will have 12 journeys. I think they are going to put them in an easy access form where they will be more fun and enjoyable for everybody, but still hold all the important things that were done in the live ones, because these are coming through live in the 12 tribes classes. That means I show up and it goes, and I never know how long it's going to be. But the first one, they said, is important for everybody to be able to carry that carrier wave that was released when the first opening of what's called Ring 1 occurred. So that will be done at the end of tomorrow night, which means once you can come back from the journey, but once it's time to go to bed, because we will, yes, please, let you go to bed by midnight, so it's not going to be one of those you're up until 7 in the morning, because, right? So tomorrow looks pretty good. We're trying to work with this. Can't we have a normal workshop schedule? And they keep saying, we're trying. And I say, yeah, we're trying too. Anybody that's new, we don't mean to have that happen with workshops, but all of the information that comes through is live. We are working with the beloveds on when certain activations have to take place as far as what's happening in the planetary grids and in the eartha grids. So we have wacky hours sometimes. Tomorrow, I'm hoping that we have whatever Mac's going to tell you about before the fact, as far as the change in schedules from what you know about that I don't know about, and then the 3 until 6, and then 6 to 8 dinner, and then 8 till 10 more technicals, and 10 till 12 the journey. So that looks like the schedule for tomorrow. So at 12 o'clock you can finish your journey, go back to your room or whatever you do, and you can go back to the temple. All right? Once you meet your greeter, who is also your advisor, you can then, when you go to sleep, every time I go to sleep now, every time I go down to Saudi, I instantly go up to there. I just say, all right, I'm back. Right? Ouch, frequency hurts, what do I do? And they're actually taking me to different rooms that are in the temple, in the Adashi 7 temple, and that help heal the frequency, where I feel better and my body feels better here because they took me there. So it's like once you get through, once you've got your access, a whole new world opens up. And this is just the beginning of it. So that's tomorrow's schedule. I'll hand this over to Mac now, I guess, so she can let you know about whatever it is that's happening earlier than...
a number of different things.
Yes, a number of different things. What are they, modules and things? I don't know what's going on tomorrow. No? Ordinations.
Teachers, there's different things.
Oh, okay, those kind of things. Okay. All right. All I know is you will see... Oh, you were coming in at 2, right? Yeah. So you will see Az at 2, you'll see me at 3, and yeah, I know you're going home to get the stuff now, yeah. And you will see Mac before that. Here you go.
I think this section will take us about 45 minutes, I guess. Why? I'm speaking. Well, it sounds like it's working. It sounds a bit tinny too. Yeah? Is that better? No. No. Is it because the speaker over here isn't giving them what they want? Is that doing it? Okay. Okay, dokes. I was just going to let you know that I thought my line just cleared. Oi. That was closer than normal. Yes, about 45 minutes, I think, to get this leg done. Then I have to skedaddle and run some of the gaps or the new elements of the mylar set. So I'll need about 20 minutes to do that. I reckon we'll be back on again at 3:30. That's what I'm telling you. So instead of continuing seamlessly, there's some mylar work that we need to do to get the sequence for the first session ready. So I'll do that as soon as we're done, and we'll be back by about 3:30. Okay. Yes? We got a tall, handsome, muscular type. Yeah, David will do. And with our special relationship in mind, Joe, I have to observe that you uniquely position yourself so you can't see the bloody screen. Every time you blow kisses at me, I notice that you follow that. I know. It almost hypnotizes me. Right. Now then, nothing like a little bit of levity in this world of ours. Now then, as you can see on the screen, you're about to commence the pre-activation for those of you who haven't done it, which is the majority of you, I think, as a preamble, preparation actually, for the crystal, the journey to Urta, Aquaferia and Adashi temples, which we'll be doing before we finish our session today. It's all very straightforward stuff. There's only one thing that has entered our minds that we haven't mentioned before, which is to draw your attention to a section of the Crystal River prayer. It might be self-evident to people who've worked with the prayer already, but I think it'd be worthwhile pointing it out. When you're done tonight, when you finished your journey, the idea is that you will have been introduced to a bendy trainer, which will be the climax of that. And if you don't feel that you've made the connection right there, if you don't feel that you've made visual identification with your bendy trainer right there, right then, I don't want you to get anxious and worry about it. Okay? It's something that will develop. Much of what occurs in our world is a form of cognition, just understanding, simply knowing something. And I think one of the difficult things that people have to do is to make a transition where you trust that understanding that suddenly comes from nowhere, the sense that you've been around something energetically, that you've been able to sense the signature of another being, another form of consciousness, is sufficient. And it's an important first step for people to trust that, but to trust it in a guarded way, because you're going to be taken to a safe place, because introductions are going to be made. Don't underestimate the fact that what you're doing is your prime rib as far as people who would prefer to prevent you from making those connections. So you must be cautious all the time. We're not encouraging you to just open and go, wow, yeah, fine, okay, I felt the bendy. You need to be cautious all the way through this process. And I'm not talking about today, I'm talking about the rest of it, from now until you leave. You'll be increasingly regarded as prime stuff, and you need to look after yourselves, bless you all. Nevertheless, the bendy types, and these, anyone, you will only associate with one bendy trainer. There won't be a combination, there won't be multiples. All right, you will, in your connection, recognize your the reality of your Urta incarnation, and the Aquaferia codes that you carry will be reflected by the bendy connection that you forge during the experience. So, for example, if you connect with an Urta Aquaferia blue dragon, which is an aquatic bird blue humanid, then that will be a re-established connection with your own Aquaferia race line. And all that represents in terms of incarnational presence, real time, as it were now, on Urta, and also it will be indicative of the kind of codes that you're carrying in your shield. Alrighty? The second of the three types are the gold dragons, the Urta Aquaferia winged lion biped humanids, and the third are the purple dragons, who are the Breatharian white humanids. Now, your bendy trainer will be one of those three. okay? And they will look, feel pretty much as I described briefly within the crystal prayer, all right? So that's just a pointer for you to bear in mind when you revisit. I hope you revisit the temples this evening when we've all done. Okay, well, with no more ado, we will get to it. Okay, we will do this as synchronized as we can, so I'll just give you a 1, 2, 3 to begin, and then we'll just all repeat this out loud together. Just pause at the end of the page so I've got time to change the film, the mylar over, okay? So we'll begin with the Om Sate Rihavea on Crystallo, the Crystal River Prayer, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Diva enture, ista en teo, Rihavea on Crystallo. In the name of the councils of Aurora, we call upon the Christic powers of the Amour. We call upon the Christic powers of the Ja-e Direct. We call upon the Christic powers of the Aqualene. We call crystallite. We call upon the crystalline powers of the Ita Chalet. Just breathe for a minute. Okay, go on now. We now command with the trusted powers of the royal light. We now invoke the eternal Christ Son to co-create, release, and renew this place. We now declare eternal sanctification. This place, this land, and all within it, into the crystal perfection we reset. That the spirit of earth the solid rise. The same thing again after the next paragraph. Okay, in co-creating. Christian grace with absolute humility, absolute love, and absolute forgiving, and only in absolute service to the eternal Christ and his ever-loving healing devotion to all life everywhere. We banish now from this sacred place all that is unwilling to receive the absolute cleansing of the crystal egg. Within the darkness of divine right order and divine right timing, as only eternal God source can know. And love. Go on. In loving Christian service, we offer release and host arrangement to all those present who are in need and seek to heal within the sacred cleansing field of Earth Sala and the eternal divine flows of the Rio Dea of Crystal. In Christi's labor and joy and gratitude for the unceasing love and mercy of the one source most divine. We end now and complete this Christian sanctification and solid right of reclamation. In the name of the one true source, God eternal. In the name of the Christ divine. In the name of the Rea Dea of Crystal. In the name of the councils of Crystal A. In the name of the councils of Crystal River. In the name of the councils of Aurora. In the name of the monkeys that cloister and emerald order, holy order of Liechtenstein, sacred house of one. And in the name of Krishna, Tupac, to turn to Krishna, Taeja Intadore, Taeja Intadore, Taeja Intadore. Okay, on three rounds of the Song of Aurora. 1, 2, 3. Be Sanu A bit quicker. Okay, faster again. Now the Vakarashel hub activation. At the point that we do the induction, which is point 3, which is here, I'll put a larger code on the screen, okay? So you don't have to work with the little one now. It's a bit lifeless. Okay, so just try and assume a slowdown in the rate of your normal breathing speed. We're going to run 48 rounds of the Un. I will do my best to keep count, but as I said before, it's a bit of a laugh. Everyone can count to 47 or 46 or 49, but we'll get around 48, don't worry. Alright, on 3 then. 1, and we'll increase the speed in blocks of 12. 1, 2, 3. Om-a-um, Om-a-um. Pick up the speed now. Quicker. Final 12, faster. Last one. Good job. Now just take a few gentle breaths before we go on to the primordial tones. Again, we will do 48 rounds of this, so on 3. Just go for it. I'll count and quicken you up each time we go through the 12s. Alrighty. 1, 2, 3. Speed up now for the second 12. Faster again. Final 12, speed up again. Last one. Just breathe gently for a few seconds. And then we'll do the shield's activation command together, out loud. We're losing legibility on this. It's the only copy that Ash and I have of it, which has been copied so many times. On line A, the middle letters are W-A, wa, Esh, wa, N. Okay, it's the only one you probably can't make out. Yeah, Esh, wa. Alrighty, on 3 then. and we just do this once all through, together. So on 3. 1, 2, 3. Esh wa en ta e ka un esta e ta gen adore rasha kave dun e have kem ta shui at ka le jena un e sa karis tash le. Now just to make a connection with the kasha key, and you just need to soften your gaze a little bit. Sometimes people interpret that to mean squinting slightly, and that's okay. Just draw your lids together a little bit. Just soften the connection with it. Now, while focusing your eyes softly on the pentagonal kasha key for a few moments, I'll tell you what we're going to do each step, and then we'll do it together. The first thing we're going to do is to inhale long, slow and deep with your arcs up, using the breath to draw the energetic signature of kasha key into your azure, and there you'll hold the breath. We'll hold for a little while, then exhale forcefully using the breath to push the kasha key down to chakra 13. The Mahadra at Earth Core, which is the same as Urta Core. Don't do it yet. And down there, we'll hold the breath, lungs empty. Now, there may be a few people who don't understand what a 1/3 inhale breath is. And that is where you gauge filling, you take a breath which fills your lungs to about 1/3 of the capacity that you can sense. And then there'll be another breath where you'll take another 1/3, so your lungs will be 2/3 full. And finally, the 1/3 will be taken, so your lungs will feel full. Don't, on the last breath, try and overfill them, because there is a top-up breath following the point where your lungs are technically full already, so there needs to be a little bit of space right after that. So we'll do the first couple of steps now we've identified what we're going to do. So first of all, inhale long, slow and deep with your eyes. Focus softly on the code with your arcs up. Draw the energetic signature of the kasha key into your azure. Hold the breath. Hold the breath and build charge for just a little while. And then when I tell you to, exhale forcefully, pushing the kasha key down to chakra 13 at Urta Core. Hold the breath out. Just hold the breath out. I won't keep you too long with that because it's a little uncomfortable at times. The first inhale will be 1/3 of your lung capacity, drawing the kasha key up from Earth Core and into the Iumbi. Okay, so take a 1/3 inhale breath, drawing the key up from Urta Core into the Iumbi, and hold the breath there. And squeeze, try and generate a squeezing sensation around your central vertical column, around the area of the Iumbi. Then take another small 1/3 inhale breath, drawing the key up from the Iumbi and into the azure, and hold the breath there. And again squeeze your central vertical column around the area of the azure. And then take the final 1/3 breath, using the breath to move the key up from the azure to the rajna at the third eye location, arcs up. Hold this breath, lungs full. Squeeze your central vertical column all around the area of the rajna. While doing that, prepare to take a final top-up breath to really fill the lungs. As you take this breath, give the mental command starburst. So take the top up and give the mental command starburst. Do the extra breath now. At the top of this inhale, hold and squeeze the central vertical all the way between the rajna, the azure and the Iumbi. I won't keep you for a second longer. And then rapidly exhale the kasha symbol down to the Urta Core and hold the breath, lungs empty. Just hold, lungs empty, just for a little longer. And then, when you're ready, take a long, slow, deep breath, using the breath to draw the key up from Urta Core and into the eye of Kanaturiya, which is between chakra 3 and chakra 4, between the solar plexus and the heart center, the tip of the sternum. And when you've done that, just relax and breathe easy. Okay, we're here. Step 4. We do this just one time. We repeat out loud together. Ektaeun marakaba hayun. One time, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Ektaeun marakaba hayun. And just breathe easy and relax for a moment before the final element, which is opening the vector density hub, the Rasha El. And this is a Hatha command. We do it 3 times. Try and be aware of your arcs as you're working with these things. On 3 then, we'll do 3 rounds straight off the bat together. 1, 2, 3. Veyan kumna ehu juen hato. Veyan kumna ehu juen hato. Veyan kumna ehu juen hato. Now take a long, slow, deep inhale, arcs up, and hold the breath for a brief moment. When I tell you to exhale, you'll be doing that. You'll be using the breath to push the kasha key from the eye of Kanataria at the tip of the sternum down to the iumbi, 1 inch below your navel. So exhale now and push the key from the eye of Kanataria to the sternum down to the iumbi. And then just relax as the key moves into the iumbi and breathe normally. You can sense, see or feel the kasha key beginning to spin within your iumbi, and it will do this according to its own direction, reflecting the content of your personal shields, activating natural hub encryption which is already carried in your own shields. You just stay with that for a moment. Okay, next is the prayer for the safe passage to heaven. Which was the basis of a very moving experience during our trip to Morocco. Certainly a more uplifting, moving experience than some of the ones we remember. Okay, now this is a one-time run through, but you'll notice that there are 2 points here and here where we have to repeat a line 3 times, but the whole thing is just done once like that. Alright, so on 3 again, as together as we can be. 1, 2, 3. And now the son of the Adam. Do you want me to do it the other way around? Are you sure? We're just getting so shoddy with our preparation. All right, so as we were instructed originally, the first round is a 3-round of the 3 lines, but done mentally, and then we go on to do that audibly. So we'll just do the mental section when we say go, and then I'll wait, and then we'll do a 1, 2, 3, and try and get everyone up together. All right. So you can begin your mental recital of the Adama Eterna now. Okay, on 3 then. Together. Wait. On 3 then. Okay. I know I did say 3. Un, deux, trois. 1, 2, 3. Ina. O Eterna Atma. Just breathe for a second. Okay, and then the closing sequence. 1, 2, 3. Iyuka. Perfect. And finally, step 5, which is the induction of the starborn flame codes. Just a second, get them out the sleeve. It was during, I think, 12 Tribes 2 that I got a little nudge to explain to people that at this stage in our development, and in particular context of the starborn activation sequence and the journeys, that working in a more fluid way with the codes was appropriate now. Whereas in the past, for those who don't understand what my context is that in the past we've been very specific in directing the point of the anatomy that the codes are related to in terms of the induction process. It was during 12 Tribes 2, I think, where I was moved to explain to people that now is the time to make a deeper connection with the codes and with your energetic anatomy. The purpose of that being is to run any kind of scan that sees, feels, or senses in some way appropriate to you through your central vertical column between chakra 14 and 12, and just run inner vision, feeling, sensation, whatever, and say to yourself, where do I most need to connect with you? Where do you and the code need to most connect? All right, I'll give you time to do it. You can use whatever squinty-eye technique, full eye, partial eye connection that you want to, anything that feels comfortable, because the key thing is the connection you make is efficient and feels good to you. But I want you to actually run up and down your central vertical column, all right, and just see if you can identify any particular location where the code feels it needs to meld with your anatomy in a location, all right. It doesn't mean to say that you can't do a general one if you don't get a sense that there's a specific point. Then you can just do a general induction into your fields, and in that case you probably use the Azure as a good distribution point, all right, if you want me to help you with that. Okay, so we'll begin with one of my favorites, which is the Uniside, the inner Rachalet code. So just bring your attention to your breathing. Arc breathing, please, all the time. Just relax and begin to make a connection, whichever way feels natural and comfortable to you. And once you've done that, just perform a self-scan and try and identify where the Uniside code and you need to deepen and strengthen and establish a stronger energetic signature with the properties that the individual code offers you. Okay, just a little while longer before I change this code. Okay, you just gently disconnect from the Uniside, and we'll go on to the Sacred Heart encryption next. Okay. Just a little longer before we switch codes. Okay, just gently disconnect. And then we'll go on next to the Rachelet wind song code, I think. Just begin to disconnect now. We go on to the Rosetta next. The fourth in the sequence of 5. Just a little while longer before we disconnect with this one. Okay, going to the final code now, code 5, which is the Rosetta, which is the inner elemental root cell. Okay, just take a little while longer to complete. Okay. And just return to the relaxed, normal breathing now. All right, you're all set to go later this evening on your first visit for most of you to the Adashi Temple, so that will be that. This has taken a little longer than I thought it might. My best guess would be to say 3:45. I can't get there and back again with the milers in the time I've got. 3:45, around about 3:45. All right, just give me a little bit extra time because we're 10 minutes over what I thought we'd do. Alrighty, so we'll see you then. Thank you.
Once again, we were getting some new graphs in for the end of this sequence, so they had to be done before, because they're supposed to be given to you before the dinner break. So that's why we were a bit late. But I think the graphs that are at the end of the sequence you'll see will assist quite a bit in understanding the structure of the Rasha body. There's a few reasons why it's so important to understand the structure of the Rasha bodies, as we call them, because there's not just a Rasha body, there's a Rasha body, a Rasha La body, and a Rasha A body, as well as a Risha Lay body, a Risha Li body, and a Risha La body. Yes. Right. So the reason it's so important to understand at least the basic structure of these is because they're not just parts of your own anatomy or parts of cosmic anatomy, but they are also the key to understanding the vertical starfire maps, as far as when you look down, and as if you could see down to Earth's core, what's really down there, and if you look up through the atmosphere, what's really up there. So before dinner, we will get through to the point where you understand the basic structure and function of the Rasha bodies, and also how they pertain to the star-born sequence, which was how first creation was set in motion from the first particle. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I'm going to show you how it links, how key generation cycles that end up in the formation of the seed atom. Something else happens after a seed atom is formed. And that's where we get into understanding not just the star-born first creation cycles, but what's called the krystar eternal creation cycles. All right, so we will move through a few sets of information, some of which you've seen, probably not in this order. If you've been in any of the 12 tribes classes, you'll have seen some of this, but the new graphs that are at the end that actually help to bring the pieces together are the key to understanding where, from the first particle, all of that goes to get to the point where you have the Rasha bodies. And then when we come back from dinner, we'll go through the sequence of graphs that were given, and they're still scratchy, but they're clear enough to get the gist, that we were given in the 12 tribes classes that show the Rasha bodies of the planet in relation to the levels of the atmosphere or levels of the earth down below our feet, down to the core. And it is through that we begin to understand where are hidden doorways, where are etheric doorways, where are physical doorways, where are doorways in the clouds, where are doorways in the mantle. There are all sorts of things we understand once we understand Rashale and then apply it to planetary and solar Rashale. So we're starting out with structure of Rashale. And it's all built on the Kathara grid, which is the precisely proportioned Kathara grid template. We won't go over all of this right now. This has been shown in a lot of different workshops. And it's simply reminding you that it all starts with the core encryption, or the crystal encryption of the Kathara grid template of the 12 points and the specific relationships between them, where you've got a square here, and half a square is linked up here will be another point, and half a square is linked down there would be your other point. It gives you the precise geometrical relationships, which are the mathematical formulas upon which all the expansion takes place from the first particle onward. So it's all built on this. Now the particle grid, the Kathara grid. Next one, please. So I'm going to go fast on some of the things that have been handled in other workshops. So for new people, there's not too many new people. So if you get a little bit lost, just realize you will see some of this in the other, like in modules and in some of the previous workshops. This is just to remind you that the Kathara grid itself forms, we have embedded and interlocked Kathara grids that form the structure of what's called the stairway to heaven. If we are down here in our little density 1 system, we have our 12 stargates, our universal stargates. We are down here in this little density 1 system. So the process of ascending, going upward, when you can ascend through radial body ascension alone, which is the long way home, where you have to ascend all the way up from density 1 to 2 to 2 to 3, 3 to 4, then to the center point, which is called the Eka point. From there, usually from the Eka realms, you have a chance to decide whether you want to keep going upward on the outer domains or whether you want to go inward into the middle Edon domains or the inner hub domains of the Adons or all the way back to source. Because our system, which is, if you look at this as our 15, is our the first 12 dimensions of our 15-dimensional time matrix, and we're down here in density 1 with D1, 2, and 3. If we weren't having the problems in our Veka system, our Eka-Veka system, this whole Eka-Veka system is actually falling into black hole status at this point. So our Veka quadrant is falling. Our Veka quadrant, the parallel one, has actually already fallen, and the Eka core is falling. Now, this is part of a larger structure called the Akasha level. The Akasha level of the structures are what are at this point. The Akashas can't fall. Only the Vekas and Ekas within them can fall into black hole status, where eventually they go home to source 2, but as space dust, or particle units. They go back to particle units. And on an in current, or an inhale of source that has to do with the currents that come out and in, they will go back in as units, undifferentiated units of the consciousness of God. Well, we are drawing strength from the Akasha levels at this point of the cosmic matrix. Because here, which is this just shown in context, we have our 4 Vekas. This is the PCM Veka. The PCM Veka is falling. We're down here in density 1. The density 1 system has an ability, because it plugs into something else called the ethos templates that we'll see a little bit on later, has the ability to enter something that is called starfire. So here we have USG3, which is Eartha, with Earth hosting in the center of it, and here we have USG4, which is Sala, and our sun's soul is hosting through it, but not completely centered on it. It's half and half in, and that's why soul has been vulnerable. It had to, in order to have the host system, once the fall from Tara occurred, the host system that was put into density 1 to create our solar system here, or to reorganize the fragments of what was a solar system up here, or actually a star called Tara, they were seeded in through the EUMB lock down into density 1 and put into the density 1 shield here. And the sun that we call soul was linked. It had to be in the middle between the EUMB and USG4. So it's partially connected to 4 and partially connected to the EUMB. That has been, these spin. If you look at a Vecca system, the Veccas spin, the whole set of the Cathar grid spins on its axis, on its center axis. So 3 revolves around, and usually 4, which is Sala, and 3 kind of chase each other, but they never catch each other. So you don't have 3 Eartha revolving around 4 Sala. In order to get the system that we have 3 Eartha with Earth inside of it, revolving around a sun that is connected to 4. That sun was here and stationary. So Earth and the 2 planets going closer to the sun revolve in the solar plane, and they pull the outer planets in the solar plane around Sol here, that is linked and held in place by Sala 4 here. So this is the situation that we have been in since the Amenti rescue mission began 550 million years ago, when the fall from Tara occurred. All right, we're down here still, and we're in a system now that straight vertical outer domain ascension can no longer take place within. Normally you would go this way, up and to the Eka, and from the Eka you could go inward if you wanted to, into the middle domains of the Edons, or further in towards Source. But there is a way to go in from density 1 when a universal set of gates are falling. And what we're going to learn about the Rashtra body, or the Rashtra bodies, is how indeed to do that. So I just wanted to remind you of the Cathar grid, how the Cathar grid forms the maps. These were called the Eka maps of the God world gates. These were the maps of the outer domains. All right, they were the maps of the outside level. Inside each of these Cathar grids, there is another smaller one that would go on a diagonal, run from the 9 down to the 4. There'd be another Cathar grid that fits in there, and that was referred to as the hub. It's also referred to as the Rasha hub. It's this part in here that you don't see on these maps that we are going to be working with as far as activating the templates to. But it is those particular hubs that are what are called the Partiki dark matter templates, where science calls them dark matter here because they can tell there is the influence of something organizational that can't be seen, that moves things that can be seen in the outer domains. They don't know what the Partiki templates are yet, but they do know that there's something called dark matter or dark energy that allows for organization and movement and effects to occur where they can be seen, but they can't tell what's making the effects. So when we refer to the Partiki templates, we are referring to the things that science refers to as that influence that's known as dark matter that creates things and makes things move and happen in the outer domains that science can study. So they are actually not made of dark matter at all. They are very light when you are perceiving them from a certain angular rotation of particle spin. But the term dark matter comes from, that is what science is referring to as that organizational something or other that makes things out here do certain things, but they don't know what the something or other is. Our beloveds know what those things are, and they are called the Partiki templates. So we are going to understand, by the time we're done with this series before dinner, we're going to understand how, from the Eka maps of the outer domains, and these Eka maps are important because these are how we find locations of things up there in the cosmos. If we want to find out where our parallel Akasha is, where we had their Eka-Veka system fall, the Borgia matrix, it helps to have a map to be able to say, in relation to where you are and your system is, where the heck are they? If you want to know where the aqueous matrix is, the matrix of the Christed ones who have never fallen and nothing in their matrix has fallen directly in their matrix. So they are literally the support line. They're going to be the respirator system for our planet pretty soon. And they have, for 450 billion years at this point, provided a host line to this system so it didn't fall with the Borgia matrix. These maps are the beginning of understanding where those locations are, at least in relation to our system. So if our system is down here with our 12 primary universal stargates, and those stargates, if I can remember them, it's been a long time, but we had Eartha at 3, at Universal Stargate 3. This was, I believe, Theta Orion. This was Epsilon Eridanus. This was Earth. This was Sala. This was it was Tara or Alcyone. So when we look up in the Pleiades, the thing that's now the remnant called Alcyone was this particular star. This is Sirius B. It still is, but it's partially compromised. Most of these are falling at this point on their own. 7 was Arcturus. 8 was Orion Mintaka. 9 was Andromeda. 10 was Vega in Lyra. 11 was Chiliac or Avion in Lyra, and 12 was Arimatena, or the Lyra double-double, what science calls double-double here. So these are all specific gates, stars, that when, even on our star charts that science has, they are identifiable in terms of their existence. So there are many other gates. All of these Cathara centers on these Cathara grids, when they're looked at in terms of the maps, they represent stargates. What's interesting about each of these stargates, and I just learned this recently, is that each of these stars is actually a central sun and would have, under normal conditions, its own little solar system around it. So each of those would be small solar systems, and some of those would form galaxies and those kind of things. Like here we have Andromeda 9. Technically, as far as when science looks up in the sky anymore, it's not even in our Milky Way galaxy. It's in a completely different galaxy all its own. That's because of things that happened a long time ago, and somewhere they're in the history lines where it was split. And there was something that the aqueous matrix did in order to assist when part of 9 was falling, the 9 system was falling. Andromeda was once part of our universal system, or more like we were part of Andromeda, and we had fallen from there. But there's still a part of Andromeda, and that's the part that we see as the Andromeda galaxy, that there's something called the Aquinos, Aquinos, I believe, nurseries, where it was a bioregenesis host system, where they salvaged part of this system and literally kept it in quarantine to allow for the evolution of certain races that would have fallen at that point. But it's also been, when we've talked about in the Voyagers books, we talked about the sphere of Amente and how it would descend down into Earth. It was stored in the Andromeda galaxy and those kind of things. It was the part that when we look at the Andromeda galaxy now, the part that is separate from us, or that we are separate from, still holds the nurseries and still has Christic potential. And that is going to become a key location in relation to the host coming from the aqueous matrix, because they will anchor their hosts from their Akasha system far, far away down through the Andromeda 9 and then through Sirius B, which can still hold it, because Sirius B, Andromeda, and Earth have what's called the gyrodome technologies that were set in at the beginning of the Amente host 550 million years ago. In the event that this fall occurred, there was something that could be done to assist the life fields out of here, and that is they are being activated. The gyrodomes on Sirius B and on Eartha and Earth are going to be activated, and they are already activated in the Andromeda system. So, and the next one, what I want to show, I just want to go real through quick, because this is going to get back into Raschet body structure. What we're going to find is how this structure emerged out of that first Partakai in the Starborn sequence. So there's a sequence of things that took place in creation that perpetually take place, once the first one did take place, that end up in the creation of the Ekamaps, of the God World Gates, which is the outer cosmic creation. So there are levels of the middle and the inner creation that took place, and all of these have to do with the word Rasha, or the word Rashaleh, or Rashali, or Rashalah, all those bodies. All right, so we'll see where they fit. But if we can just remember really quickly in the Ekamaps, we have 4 Veka quadrants, 1 Eka core system. They exist within a larger structure that's called an Akasha system, and the Akasha has larger stargates, and these are off the charts as far as what we can see right now, as far as what science can find up there. These are so far out there. There's nothing that can photograph them or anything like that as far as these larger gates that go with the Akasha level. Then there's a larger structure that this is part of, where you have 4 Akashas, each with their Ekaveka system inside, right? You have 4 Akashas, and this is called the Akasha A. And then, can we bring that down, honey, please? And then here we have 4 of these, 4 Akasha A, that form the external body of Source that is called the Akasha Aya. And collectively, when you see it with its parallel, it would be the Yukatharista body of the outer domains. If you took the Akasha Aya body and made another set of points this way, right? There's another matrix that runs through it. That is the Adore side. We talk about our parallel Eka. There's a parallel Eka, parallel level of going. It's literally, if you could look at the shield in which our spheres are built as here, as a plate, they would be the underside of the plate, except actually we're the underside of the plate. They are the overside of the plate. They're of higher frequency. But their spheres that form the domains that their realities take place in run through ours. They're just at a different base pulse rhythm, or pulsation rhythm, vibrational pulsation rhythm, and at a bit different angular rotation of particle spin. So the Akasha Aya Christ body, or the level 4 of the Stairway to Heaven, holds the 4 Akasha A, and each of the 4 Akashas and each of the Veka Eka sets within them. So we're way down here in one of these little tiny things you can't even see on this diagram. This map gives you the key to understanding where the other matrices are that we're involved with. And it's important that if we're, like, who are these people? Where exactly are they? We can at least understand in relation to us down here in one of these, and we'll see which one it is in a minute. We can see where their matrices are in relation to ours, so we understand where the currents of energy that are coming in are actually coming from. Next one, please. That's just a bigger look at the Akasha Aya body, the cosmic body, and they showed us this as the big cosmic body, the body of Source, right? Before they made the delineation between, there's also a middle level, an inner level, and a core level, right? That also have all these interwoven Cathara grids. We call the Cathara grids the bones and the spheres that form on them, because wherever you see a Cathara grid, it implies sets of spheres around it, or spherical electromagnetic energy domains. So these, we call them the bones, which would be the Cathara grid structures, and the balls, which are the spheres. So this is just showing you a close-up again. These were in, I believe, the Cathara 2-3 manual, where we showed the beginnings of the bones and the balls. Next one, please. Long time ago, we showed how the beast machine black hole technologies were being used to compromise the natural structure of our system. And this is where we began to find out where, in relation to ourselves, where this particular matrix called the Wisa matrix was, where there was a Wisa Drak and a Wisa Dek fallen Veka in them. And there were black hole wormholes spliced through from theirs into our system over here. So this was the beginning of understanding where these black hole systems were in relation to our own system. If this is the Akasha Aya level, and this would be the Akasha level, I believe. Is this an Akasha Aya? Yeah. And this would be our Akasha here, and this down here would be our little Veka system. All right, so we're that little thingy down there. And over here is where we had in its natural form, it's called the Wisale matrix, which is a natural Christic matrix, but it had two of its, in one of its Akashas, it had its 2 Veka systems blown out. The pKa part of it, or the antiparticle part, was formed what were called the Wisa-Drak black hole system, and the PCM part is the part that formed the Wisa-Dek black hole system. Now, these weren't the start of our problems, right? Their problems were created from the same place our problems were created, even further before. We're not going to cover the history right now. I'll probably go into the history a bit more on Sunday when we get into the rest of the things that have to do with the who are who and that kind of thing, and where did they do what. All right, so right now I want to stick with helping us understand where the currents are coming from that we're working with, and then we're going to go into understanding the rasha bodies so we can see where all of the natural bodies were formed and what it means to activate the rasha bodies. Because what we're in the process of doing is activating the rasha bodies so a condition called prana exchange can once again occur, first within the indigo shield and then after Peru within the earth shield temporarily on a host. The indigo shield will act like an intermediary respirator for planet Earth. And the large respirator, let's say the respirator generator, will be the aqueous matrix that allows us, through Eartha, to have enough frequency in order to do that. So we have our system here and the Weaselay system here with its Weasadek and Weasadrak fallen black hole systems. Next one, please. This, make it a little bit more clear. We're looking at the same thing, just at a different rotation. But if we look at these, here's our Akasha Aya, here's our Akashas, Akasha A's, right? 4 Akasha A's. And inside of those, you've got 4 Akashas, right? We are, let me see if I can read this from this side better. Our system, our PCM, Universal Akasha A, Spectra 3, or Akasha Corridor 4. So there are actually coordinates that go with each of these. We're over here, all right? This would be our Akasha level, and this, so it would be our, this would be our Akasha A, this would be our Akasha here, and we have a parallel Akasha that would be here. The parallel Akasha has its own Ekaveka system in it, just like we have our own Ekaveka system here. It's in the parallel Akasha that the entire Ekaveka system fell. This occurred 950 billion years ago after an experiment, I believe, that was started 980 billion years ago and progressively went bad. We'll talk a little bit about that history on Sunday. But this is the location of what is called the Borenthesala or Borgia system. They were called the Borenthesalas races, and they were a Christic race at the Eka level. All right, they weren't just a density level down in a Veka system. They were at the Eka level. So they were, big guys with lots of consciousness and intelligence. There were certain things that happened down in their Veka system where 3 density levels went into fall. And they were devastated. They didn't understand how such things could be allowed by the Christ code, how such seemingly to them merciless things could be allowed. So they decided there was something wrong with the Christ code and that they would fix it. So they orchestrated an experiment to try to find a way to make sure falls never happened again. And basically to one-up the Christ code that allows for the eternal life creation, and it allows for action and consequence. And if you throw enough of a certain kind of action that twists the natural laws of energy, you will get that back, and eventually that will lead to a fall. Everybody goes home. It's not that anybody gets stuck, because you either go home whole or you go home in pieces, but you still go home to Source. So nothing is ever lost, and that's why Source doesn't look at it as being merciless that falls can happen. What is Source supposed to do? Let something that gets out of control in the matrix, in its own living body? Are we supposed to just let those things run rampant and kill everything around them and take out Source too? That the concept of that doesn't even make sense to Source. It's beyond anything that's rational in the mind of Source, which is very rational and beyond. So the Borenthesales races of the Eka tried an experiment whereby they incarnated themselves into supposedly a quarantined experiment where they would... what is that? Anybody know? Walkie-talkies? Oh, well, we're going to have to ask them to do something about that because it's interfering. I don't know how to play with these. Anybody know how to play with it? Okay. Anyway. Walkie-talkies through the intercom. That's a new one. I won't even ponder what that might be. So anyway, they began an experiment where they incarnated themselves into 3 groups into density 4. to run this quarantined experiment, actually into density 3 and density 4, where one group would play victim, one group would play victimizer, and there would be a control group that would watch competition, because they got it to the point where they understood that falls happened because of competition for energy, and they wanted to find out what that meant. And they created an experiment that was quite fair. One group would incarnate, and they would all themselves. They would incarnate into this. They weren't inflicting it on anyone else but themselves. But they created what was called the Biveka code, or the Vesica Pisces code for artificial light. They built their templates for this experiment on that code, and this is where the start of that came from. And way later, out of that, came the beast technologies and the threshold technologies. But what they found was there were supposed to be 4 cycles of 6, where victim and victimizer would reverse, where you'd have victim, victimizer, victimizer, victim, victim, victimizer, victimizer, victim. And by the end of those cycles, they hope to understand the whole thing and have a better way to deal with the whole issue of fall, and a better way to improve upon the Krist code, which was a really bad idea from the beginning, but some people have got to try. And they did. They kept a control group that did have the natural Christic Triveka code, or the 3 light cells instead of the 2. But by the 3rd round, the 3rd 6th cycle, it got so bad that between the warring and fighting and craziness that happened from the consciousness built on the Biveka code, with no third way to harmonize the polarities within itself, that they broke out of the quarantine. The ones who were playing the victimizers at that point, who were called the Borja Musala Alema, that group, they destroyed the other group completely, and then they went after the founder groups, and they destroyed them as well, and they progressively took down their matrix, and it became known as the Borgia matrix. So, yeah, and it was like, sometimes good intentions don't have the outcome you might think they have. The problem way back then, 450 billion years ago, between 480 and 450 billion years ago, when this was occurring over here, was they had managed to splice in to the Eka core, because they had raided their own Eka. They took down their Eka, not just their Veka system. They had spliced from their Eka into their parallel Eka, which was our Eka over here. So if there were anyone who tried to re-quarantine them or put them back in quarantine so they couldn't cause any more harm, it would have dragged this Veka system in, Eka-Veka system in as well. So all the life fields here, and this was seeded with life fields 950 billion years ago, so there's a lot of life fields happening here. They all would have been taken into black hole fall with a destiny of space dust return. And because that was considered unfair by some of the Christic races, they decided on, and this was not just races from the Vekas and Ekas, but races from the Akasha layers themselves, with the permission and support of the Akasha A races, all the way up the chain as far as the larger consciousness fields, and also going down in that we'll talk about later as far as the middle and the inner hubs and the cores. But what was decided was there was something called the Trimatrix Tri-River Cooperative is what it was first called. All right. There is a cooperative of the Christic races from this place here. Now, see, they're in a different Akasha Aya, actually, completely different Akasha Aya, or A, where our Akasha A is here, where the fall happened, and their Akasha A is here. They have one Akasha here and one Akasha here. Now, at this point, when this first occurred, these black holes weren't there. This was called the Weaselay matrix, and this was called the Aqueous matrix. And the Weaselay matrix was considered our adjacent, or in our adjacent Akasha. And this would be the parallel of theirs, all right, their parallel Akasha. So this is considered the parallel adjacent Akasha. This is where the Aquarii are coming from. This is where the aqueous races are coming from. This is where the host line is coming from. They were close enough but far enough away to the Borgia matrix to be able to assist, but assist without getting taken down themselves, without the technology compromising them. So they have various ways of running frequency to us here. One of them was through the Weaselay matrix, who their Christic councils also assisted in this. There were Aquarii from here, different race lines, that incarnated into this matrix and into our matrix in order to hold frequency and to assist with this very, very long-term evolutionary project that would hopefully be able to evolve our races enough where we could block the Eka wormhole link to, or time rips, not even a wormhole, it's a time rip link to the Borgia matrix, which would put the Borgia back into a temporary quarantine state. Then these guys could just send in the frequencies that would have their own frequencies, create a quarantine around them so they could live happily ever after until they went to space dust, instead of trying to eat everything around them. Because what they've been trying to do, their one prime objective is assimilation. Assimilate everything. And it's irrational, but to them it's completely rational. They have no emotional bodies left. They don't feel in terms of compassion or any of those things. It's very clinical. Assimilation. There's a character group that we're on, I think it was Star Wars Next Generation, called the Borg. Yeah, that character set were based on race memory of these guys. So, yeah, you'd be amazed at how some of these pop up in sci-fi. Ones that we call the Thetans, which are another group that side with the Borgia and are just as nasty, they popped up in one of them, and they were, what were they called? Remember those? The Wraith, right. That's the ones, the Wraith. Yeah, so it's funny to see how these guys pop up. But these are the beings that we're dealing with. And it's like, you got to love them because they were once part of the Christ and once apart, always apart. However, they don't feel the same. And there is no reason why one has to let yourself or your matrix get devoured by them just because they think it's a good idea. So the Christos, right, the Christos that is being offered and has been, it was started 400, and I think they actually started the Crystal River Tri-Matrix Cooperative before it even completely fell, and then they solidified it once the fall did occur. And they have been, for 450 billion years, supporting this system and this system in whatever way they could, because these guys ended up, the Weaselay ended up with one of their race groups falling, and forming the Weasadrax, I believe, happened first. And what was interesting is one of the Aquarii line races that incarnated from over here in the aqueous matrix, they had seeded Aquarii line races here and Aquarii line races here. One of their groups actually fell also, and they became what were called the Equarii. Instead of with an A, it's spelled with an E. And they went after various ones from our matrix that had to do with the Metatronic Beast Machine people. So everybody was fighting with everybody at this point. So because of the Borgia fall, we ended up with the Weasadrak and the Weasadek fall over here, and we ended up with now our Veka and Eka are falling, because our Eka is also falling. So basically, after 450 billion years of attempting to save it, this did do this matrix in. However, it did not do it in a way that was able to eat it or assimilate its frequency or its consciousness. And that's what the hosts are about. The Earth itself in this system decided it did not want to go black hole assimilation fall. It did not want to. What these guys had planned was to first drag this through into the Weasadrak black hole and make that really big. And then what they were really hoping to do was drag it over and take out the Aquarii and then take them all back in, because that would give them a lot of food for a lot of quantum time. Because if you have a black hole fall, which means you can't generate spark current anymore on your own, you will hit a point in your system, in your entire universal system, that you will hit what's called a Bardo point, where you have no more quantum left in your seed atom, or there's hardly anything left in the seed atom, so it can't sustain the spin and the pulsing of the light body structure of the system. And at that point, what are called the core gates close, and the core gates exist between the seed atom and the more outer structures, not fully outer structures, but more outer structures, as we'll see a bit later. When that happens, it enters Bardo, and at a certain point in Bardo, after Bardo comes Nova. And nova is when, just like science sees stars that nova on occasion out there, they explode. First it's actually an implosion, and then an explosion. So ones who end up falling into black holes because they were messing with energy in ways that was not Christic, and it was abusing the natural flow of energy as it exists in the eternal life matrix, they do find themselves going nova at some point, which means they go back to particle units and space dust. And because the living body of the Christos and the living body of Source expands and contracts. And when it contracts, it creates currents that go back as backflow to Source, and then it expands back out again and breathes backflow return currents out. So whatever black hole forms out here in the outer matrix and then goes back to space dust, it gets inhaled back into Source, so its consciousness field goes back home anyway. So there's a lot of races that actually fear that concept of being annihilated, But it isn't being annihilated. You can't be annihilated. You will lose your memory imprint, your race memory imprint if a whole race goes. But Source never forgets. You're always a part of Source because of the natural ebb and flow of the frequencies that come from the outer domains, through the middle domains, through the inner domains, through the core, and back into Source. So it is a living matrix that whether you go home as space dust or whether you go home with your Risha bodies, it's all a matter of preference, really. Risha bodies, there's an advantage to going home whole because you can remember the process, and then you can consciously choose what you'd like to be the next time you get exhaled out on a wave of consciousness. And you never get exhaled out alone. You always come out as a massive collective of consciousness. You are a gestalt consciousness that has to make itself smaller as it comes into the outer domains in order to fit into manifest creation. So we're all connected to Source at all times through the living body of the Christ, through the living body of Source. But when there's distortions when distortions in energy occur that lead to black hole falls, there's also distortions in consciousness. We're just like here. We sit on this planet and we have forgotten completely where we came from, what our incarnational history is, what our simultaneous time memory is, because really history is really what's happening in other space-time locations right now with you. We have forgotten so much. Our consciousness has become distorted because our gene codes became distorted, because the electromagnetic fields on our planet became distorted. So there's a distortion of consciousness that comes with conditions of black hole fall. We're still fortunate enough that we're able to bring through enough information to start waking ourselves up with so we can remember we were part of an eternal creation. Because there are those, we call them the world management team and also the universal management team, who have been playing anti-Christic games with energy, who are intending to just simply use this as quantum food, be it space dust or not. They don't really care because quantum is quantum. Energy is energy. And if it will help their black hole systems to live longer, that's all that matters to them. We don't look at it that way. Ascension is still significant to those who bring us these teachings, and it is still significant to a lot of people here, or nobody'd show up. So I just wanted to let you know where everybody's located in relation to each other. When we run certain frequencies, and when we activate something called the Anshatesa passage, this is from this matrix, all right, from the aqueous matrix. Now, if we go into what's called the hub level of the aqueous matrix, they are called the Anshatesa hub. From their hub, they will anchor through into, now this is the Akasha hub, all right? It's not just the Veka level, it's the Akasha level of their system that is doing this, and it will have backup from the Akasha A level if necessary. They're anchoring from the center of their Akasha into the center of our Akasha down here, a beam of frequency, let's call it, that is called the Anshatesa passage. It will come up through our hubs first, and our hubs are called the Hathor hubs, H-A-H-T-U-R, Hathor hubs, all right? And then it will come up into and be available to our systems, including Earth, from that position. Now, not all, once it gets into our Veka system, the only places that are capable of running this at this point are the Andromeda system at 9, the Sirius B system at 6, and the Eartha system at 3. Now, Sala was capable of running that also until the 25th of March, where something occurred. Sala can run it, but it can't plug it into Sol, which is our sun that we see that our planets are revolving around. So Sol is no longer able to run that. So Earth is the last chance for this to be anchored. And it was meant to be the main anchoring rod anyway, but it was supposed to triangulate over into Sol in order to support Sol with this system too. But the core gates in Sol have closed and compacted, and that means that Sol has entered Bardo, and that means our sun has entered Bardo. That was something they've been trying to hold off, because if your sun goes Bardo, it doesn't matter really how happy your planets are in that particular solar plane, because when it novas, everything's going to fry, right? Now, Bardo is a thing that occurs, and we'll see where it occurs once we get into Rashale body a little bit. It has to do with the prana seed. But when Bardo occurs with compaction of the core gates, it begins a process of separation between the Partiki templates and the outer domain. And even in a small level, on a person's body in a Bardo, where, say, a natural death occurs, where if it's not an eternal life system or it can't rejuvenate itself, a natural bardo would occur where the Partiki template separates from the seed atom and the Partikai template that is behind it. And that would begin a process that, after a period of time, would end up in particular types of radiation waves going out from what used to be the prana seed that compacted, and they would become like a gamma wave spectrum, and eventually they would cause first implosion of the prana seed and then explosion, which would be, looking at it from the outside, it would be a nova, just like they see with stars. Okay, natural bardo embodies would actually do that. There was a time when, an in-between time, like after we lost the ability to fully just get ourselves out of here by turning into light and then popping up elsewhere, when we did have to bardo, but we knew how to bardo, you didn't have to worry about undertakers. You didn't have to worry about embalming. You didn't have to worry about even putting your beloveds up on pyres for birds to pick them to death or for, to burn them, because the body would hit that natural point. If the bardo was set in place, there was a particular way the consciousness could get out and separate itself from the body template, and then the body template would simply do this thing inside of the prana seed, and it would build up frequency and start radiating itself until it vaporized itself.